Hey everyone, Ivy League Gaming here, and today we're playing Raid Shadow Legends, and we are continuing the series on the Hydra heads. I am doing a video on each Hydra head so we can break it down, understand how to beat it in simpler terms. It sounds complicated when you just read the skills, but take a breath, analyze them, and it's not so bad if you can luckily find champions that can combat multiple heads' abilities in one. Now, we're on to the Head of Wrath. This one is tough, right? But it's also exciting when this is one, if you have certain champions. So I'm going to mention one of our friends first. We're going to talk about Geomancer a lot, probably, if you haven't noticed in this series already. Geo is Hydra King, and this head is one of those he's also king for. So let's first take a look here at his skills. Head of Wrath. A1 here. Alright. Attacks all enemies. Places a 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. No, thank you. That can be resisted though, right? So let's actually, before we even continue, Head of Wrath, accuracy 285, resistance needed 390. So if we're talking about the wave that is brutal, I have it on for now for sake of argument with the Hell Hades Stages tool here. That's what you need. Which, if you're going to be resisting the Head of Mischief, you're going to be resisting the Head of Wrath too, so you don't got to worry about that too much. But alright, each enemy hit receive increases the vengeance counter by 1. You know, that lovely little ticker. Once it reaches level 15, smack, right? Places a vengeance buff, a block debuffs buff, and a 15% reflect damage buff on this head for 1 turn. The vengeance counter resets every time it reaches 15. Enemy hits will not be counted while under vengeance buff. So when he hits hard when this gets to 15, guys, and you need to prepare for that. That is the biggest thing with this passive part of this ability, is being ready to take a hard smack from the Head of Wrath when it hits that level. So that's one of the discussions we need to talk about, is that how do you counter it? Number 1, block damage. Why the hell not? We got our friend Helicath in the mix now. Oh yeah, he also fulfills another way to counter it. A big fat shield. Helicath is amazing for countering the Head of Wrath now. He is so good. That shield is a Valkyrie level shield, almost. Valkyrie, again, also great for it. But keep in mind, you better be prepared. With Valkyrie, she puts up counterattack. That means you're going to be attacking the Head of Wrath a lot more often. And so unless you want to attack the Head of Wrath often, you better be ready for that counter. So if you're putting Valkyrie in there instead of Helicath, you're probably going to need someone else besides Valkyrie to help you deal with the smashes. Now, damage mitigation. Val, Duchess, Rector, etc. Tatora. They're great for damage mitigation because of Val. Some champions also have damage mitigation passives, just overall, or you also have the masteries that mitigate damage from AoE attacks. Something to keep in mind if you know you're going to be facing the Head of Wrath. You can also put in people, like I said, Geomancer. Let's just go take a look. I have to describe why he's so good for the Head of Wrath. It's about his passive. Damage mitigation, deflected onto each enemy under HP burn, when placed by him only though. So this does not count if like Mordecai places it, or Ninja places it. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, only activates 1. So alright, whenever this champion is attacked, deflects 30% of damage instead. When deflecting damage on each enemy hit, it has a 30% chance of dealing additional damage equal to 3% of the target's max HP. This is what we want, right? We want that big ol' smack to be reflected in damage. And that will help you tick up your damage so much faster because the Head of Wrath hits hard. It hits hard. So if you can actually make sure that, for one, you want to have HP burn up when that happens because of damage mitigation. He's so good. He does literally everything. HP burn is great to have with the place and weaken for extra damage, of course. But this is really nice for sake of Even the poison cloud, dealing with that as well. Plus you need the HP burn on for that passive. But he also removes buffs from an enemy, and if he has HP burn up, he steals the buffs. So whenever that Head of Wrath puts up an increased attack, or that reflect damage, at least Geomancer can take that off. As well as this. And this. Oh, and his A1 decreases accuracy, so he's less likely to put that decreased attack on you. He's also, we got another skill to talk about with the Head of Wrath though, so we'll get to that. But Geo's so good for the Head of Wrath. That's just, he's one of the best, and anyone that can help to mitigate damage is what you want to think of when it comes to the Head of Wrath. So let's talk this one as well. This is something that you can, again, resist, or you can try to have, and along with that, decrease accuracy debuff on him, so that way the provokes don't land. Attacks all enemies, places a provoke debuff for 1 turn. Also places a 50% increased attack buff on this head for 3 turns. So this, again, increased attack, you don't want that on him. He smacks hard enough as it is. So that's where you're going to want people like Geomancer, Godseeker, Madame Ceres, etc. Anyone that can steal, remove, decrease the duration of buffs, because you don't want him to smack with that increased attack buff on. So one thing to think about too is with this skill and how hard it hits, and talking about block damage, you actually, ideally if you're having Geomancer in the team, you probably don't want block damage up when the Head of Wrath is going to smack. So if we're talking Helicath, our new friend, he actually would be better to just have the shield up when the smack is coming, not block damage, because you want to take advantage of Geomancer's passive. So if he smacks hard, you want that damage reflected. That's going to help your damage increase faster, a lot faster. But if you're not taking any damage because of block damage, well, you just lost a big part of what makes Geomancer so great for that head. So try to keep that in mind too. If you can avoid block damage, if you have Geomancer in your team, that's going to be very beneficial for your overall damage. And then here we go again with the passive. Decreases the damage of all Hydra heads taken from AoE attacks by 10%. Damage from skills that scale based on enemy max HP cannot exceed 10% of the head's max HP. Same thing. Damage taken from 1 tick of HP burn cannot exceed 20,000 HP. And damage taken from reflect damage, War Master Mastery, or Giant Slayer cannot exceed 50,000 HP per attack. So everything is capped. And then immune to stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, block active skills, block passive skills, fear, true fear, poison, and petrification debuffs. Also immune to HP exchange effects, HP balancing effects, cooldown increasing effects, max HP reduction effects, and turn meter reduction effects. So I do want to quickly also mention the synergy with this. So in this current rotation, or any of these rotations that have Torment and Wrath, if you have that combination of Geomancer and Shamel, you're in a good place. And you want to take advantage of that, right? You want to take advantage of the synergy there. So when it comes to the Head of Wrath and Torment, that's what you want to target. You want to target the Head of Wrath with all those multi-hitters to make that tick fast. Lydia's A3. You want to use that. Block buffs. And extra buffs. Extra debuffs. Extra hits, I mean. It's helpful. It's really helpful. You're going to put those extra ticks on the Head of Wrath. You want the Head of Wrath to go more often. The more often the Head of Wrath goes, the more often Geomancer's passive is going to proc and add extra damage quickly. And also, the Head of Wrath is kind of squishy, so you can, it's one of the heads that usually comes down first for me. So far in this current rotation with, this is a rotation 2, Head of Wrath has been the first one always down for me. I always use Shamel's A2 on him right away, and Lydia's A3 on him right away, and then everyone else, the A1s, I just attack the Head of Torment. And honestly, if you can get lucky and you can let the Head of Torment stay alive with Life Barrier when the Head of Decay is there, it can be helpful. But honestly, with this rotation, there's no Head of Decay to put up Life Barrier unless you get unlucky later on. So you're probably going to kill the Head of Wrath first, and then you're probably going to kill the Head of Torment second. So it's just something to think about. Targeting those 2 heads should be your focus. And as you do that, you're probably going to naturally kill the other heads as you go along. But I tend to focus the HP burn from Geomancer, making sure it's always on the Head of Wrath. And then I cycle around and try to make sure that it goes on the other heads that do AoEs as well, because he has that damage mitigation. And then I should say Geomancer, if you're doing the comps with Shamel and Geomancer in the same team for these rotations, Geomancer needs to be the lead champion, because Shamel, the way all that works is he actually boosts the turn meter of whoever's the leader. That's just how it ends up working. Instead of the way the passive is supposed to work, it just boosts the leader for some reason. It's just how it's been. But there we have the Head of Wrath. It's really not that bad if you can bring in some sort of damage mitigation, ways to combat it. And also, I forgot to mention one important thing. Decrease attack debuffs. If you're working with Lord Champfort, Tomb Lord, there's a lot of champions that do decrease attack, of course. And having the decrease attack also on the Head of Wrath will obviously help him do less damage just in general. So try to throw that debuff in there if you're dealing with the Head of Wrath, and you'll definitely appreciate it later. But, and also along with the fact of, I think I mentioned this, but in case I missed it, in case, when it comes to placing the increased attack on himself, if you have block buffs up, he won't do that. Again, block buffs is huge for Hydra. You got Umbral's the best at it, and then we also have Ugo, who brings a lot of utility to Hydra as well. So hope this was helpful, guys. We're on to the next head, though. We've been talking about all the different heads. Our lovely, not lovely friend, the Head of Decay, is next. He's not a part of the current rotation as of posting this video, but it is a part of it if you keep rolling and he pops in there instead of the other heads you want. So can't forget the next 2 heads. So let's continue this series, and I'll see you guys in the next video.